he has cut down greatly. 75% of the heroin and the fentanyl coming over the borders? I would have to say heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine. They come over the border. I know way back in the 70s, meth was made domestically here in the United States. I have no idea how that panned out through the whole drug lord wars of the 80s and 90s. And we've cut down on a lot of the sex slaves crossing our border. President Donald J. Trump neutralized the MS-13 plague that was here in the United States. Murderers they are, one and all. And if you're somebody who wants to argue about that, just Google that. The Dems don't even try to hide it. They have massacred people and assassinated them and just murdered them for pleasure. I'm not even sure what the word for that is. Trump created a working peace treaty with the Middle East. Jimmy Carter spent 50 years of his career trying to do that. By defeating radical Islamic forces in Afghanistan, he simultaneously destroyed 53% of opium production, reducing the amount of heroin manufactured globally. I could go on and on and on about his achievements. If I started listing personal acts of kindness and charity, I would be here for days. And what I mean by that is, before he became president and while president, he had run into people that were experiencing hard luck, but he believed them to be hard workers and people that would give back and put back if given the chance. He's paid for the education of strangers. He has given free housing to strangers. He has helped people in the throes of slow deaths of loved ones like cancer and HIV. He's a good dude. You may not like his politics, and I understand one of the issues that he ran into is women, and nowadays most men want to feel some kind of empathetic signal coming from their leaders. And he does not generate an empathetic signal. Sometimes he goes at his enemies, and I will say they deserve it, but he goes at them a little too hard. Oh, look at that. We've gone over this 15 minutes, but you know what? Today we're going to keep on going because I haven't even finished the script yet. Like I said, I could go on and on about his kindness, his charities, what he's done as a president, what he's done as not being the president. I'm sure he's going to go on afterwards and do great things and even greater things politically. I think that man has so much willpower and force of will, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Just he's a very driven man who I believe derives his esteem from accomplishment. And I am sorry to say that you libtards missed out on the chance to truly bring our country into a healthy, profitable, and morally justified future. I will say this just doesn't add up. I understand why Trump feels they cheated. One, from the evidence, and before there was evidence, just simply put, you libtards chose a communist with dementia issues over someone who has returned wealth, safety, and esteem to our country. It's amazing. So, it is no wonder Trump and the Republicans and their supporters are very suspect. Stop pretending you don't understand. Stop pretending he is being paranoid. There is enough evidence to warrant an in-depth, deep investigation. I'm not saying that I've seen evidence that proves mass guilt, but we have seen absolute evidence of cheating going on that should warrant more investigation. To all the libtard media, you, yes, I said you, personally see enough evidence of tampering. Well, I misworded that. Let me rephrase. Tonight I didn't go over my script before doing the show. I was running a little bit late. You can feel my throat's a little scratchy. I'm a little under the weather. So to all libtard media, yes, I personally see enough evidence of tampering and observer masking to warrant a very in-depth investigation. And no, I mean that. Even though I'm reading a script, that is really, truly my personal opinion. And it's not a script, it's just general outline notes. You really want to go into this knowing what you want to talk about. It can turn into an avalanche quickly. And everybody does it, even the greats like Hannity, Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Joe Rogan. Now, there is actually, he used to kind of side with liberals, but even when he was very liberal, he still did it with taste and tact. Well, anyways, to all the libtards, yes, I personally see enough evidence to warrant a very in-depth investigation. Too bad if that opinion is too rough for your overly vulnerable sensibilities. What you have all proven with your tantrums and triggered issues is that, well, back in 2016, you proved that you're bad losers. And in 2020, you've proved that you're horrible winners. So let's go down through. We've got some general news and other bullshit. Let's see. Fox News is running a number of articles. Now, this is going back about a week and a half because I didn't actually do a show last week. 'Tis the season, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Let's see. Fox News was running a number of articles about AOC and the squad trying to execute a coup attempt against Pelosi and Schumer, but I guess this week everybody's getting along better than they were. Everyone involved in that particular crap is a big rat. Nancy and Chuck deserve rebellion against them, though. Oh my God, the laws and policies they endorsed over the decades have ranged from comical to sinister. I've been hearing a lot of rumors on national emergency, meaning that the current president might try to invoke what's called an act of sedition. If he can show or prove an act of sedition, he can declare a national emergency. He then can take control of a number of things, which means he could halt the transition of power, and he could demand and enforce a real investigation. I should say force an investigation. Let's see, where did I leave off here? And it is not a long reach to realize Biden and Harris are going to sell us out to China. This is from a good many perspectives. And this, from a good many perspectives, qualifies as treason. I imagine there are some conservatives that feel an urgency to save their country. Let's see, on Facebook, North Carolina State Sen. Bob Steinberg purchased a commentator to make a radical... Oh, pardon me. Here, all right, let me put my glasses on. North Carolina Senator Bob Steinberg, I remember reading this now. Again, this is going a week and a half. Paraphrased a commentator to make a radical suggestion. He suggested to President Trump to declare a national emergency. The 72-year-old state senator wrote in the Post, which has since been deleted, Trump should also invoke the Insurrection Act. And even though they muffled that quickly, I think the reason they muffled it quickly is because it's a real consideration. The Insurrection Act, which was signed into law by President Thomas Jefferson in 1807, would allow the president to deploy military forces on U.S. soil. It would also let him employ investigators and other agents of non-combat or arrest skills to pursue an investigation on the election. Because if they cheated, then there's treason involved. And my God, that is one of the biggest perpetrations of fraud ever, undermining even the Constitution. So this, I remember, was a threat by the Democrats if Hillary lost. Obama was going to do the same. But he didn't. I'll give him credit, he didn't do that. Then the rumors are a few states secede from the Union. Which I have a feeling that may happen. If Joe Biden really does become the president, we start sliding into bed with China, we start selling off our constitutional political rights, giving the Chinese more and more power. I could very well see a number of states seceding, and not really seceding from the Union and the Constitution, but leaving the corrupt swamp and maintaining and sustaining them by the law of the Constitution and by just a generally good moral fiber. Let's see here. We got more to end this podcast. We went too far. Well, let's see. I agree that something shady went on with the 2020 presidential election. I agree our Democratic friends are going to sell us out to the fascists and communists, starting with selling us out to China. You're going to see us getting big kisses from Putin, actually giving big kisses to Putin. I feel that we're going to end up under the management of China. We will lose our Bill of Rights, and that's a shame. That's all we have that makes us equal. I would not blame the president for such a move if he did go with insurrection and a national emergency. But I'm not saying to do that unless it's legally representative of what's written in the Constitution. It will be amazing to see what the future reveals. As we get closer and closer to January 20th, it seems to be our president is getting more and more frustrated. What I'd like to see is some real proof, so then we can just step back, take the leash off, and let him go bite everyone in the ass. Well, to end this political podcast, I'm going to read from our Bill of Rights. Amendment number 1. Freedom of religion, speech, the right to assemble and speak. Congress shall make no law concerning the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging from... Oh, pardon me, I just ran into a technical difficulty. Test 1, 2, okay, there we go. We're back on the air. I do apologize. Things don't work perfectly, and aside from a partner who helps me write and research, I'm doing everything. I'm also the sound engineer, and I'm horribly unqualified to do that. Now, I want to get back to what we were doing here. As I said, to end this podcast, I want to read from the Bill of Rights. I think I'm going to try to do this every so often, and we'll start with the First Amendment. That discusses our freedom of religion, speech, right to assemble and speak. Congress shall make no law concerning the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. The Dems want to stop the Trump rallies. That violates this amendment. They want to stop people from going to church. That violates this amendment. The people whom assemble in their support are not peaceable. The only part of this amendment that the liberals support is not obstructing the press. And I believe the press has taken their freedom of speech to illegal heights, because 90% of the press is in their employ. Think about that. 90% of the press is in the employ of liberals, the most powerful liberals and the most extreme liberals. And their doctrine is just a doctrine out of evil. When Antifa shows up and beats the shit out of peaceable Republicans publicly supporting their president and Constitution, and I believe last night actually there was a Republican with a sign peaceably protesting who was run over by Antifa. Well, that is a huge violation of rights listed there in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. I'm asking you folks, how can we let this happen? I'm going to say goodnight and thank you. Again, my name is James Hayden. We're sponsored by the Civis Gravis Society. We're always thinking of emergency responders and military personnel. And also, and to be redundant as always, our quest is to turn sheeple back to free-thinking people. Thank you.